Hi, everyone. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. And this is the Takeout. Emil Amok's Takeout. I've been using the Takeout for a long time. I noticed there's some other people using the Takeout. Before the pandemic, I was using the Takeout. I've been pitching the Takeout for a long time, and no one took it out. And then I did it myself. How are you? Emil Amok's Takeout Live, number 162. We are here asking the question, WDAAAT, what that? What does an Asian American think? What does an Asian American think? I mean, no one ever asks us. And when we do, or when they do ask us, there's not enough of a sample. They say, oh, so small sample. Well, of course, they're Asians. Small sample. No. Well, forget we're just going to tell you what Asian Americans think. We fill the void right here. Emil Amok's Takeout. I'm Emil Guillermo. Amok truly is my middle name. I've been a talk show host, been a reporter, been a journalist for many years. Hosted All Things Considered for a brief period, but was the first Asian American to do so. First Filipino American to host a national news show. And now I find myself here talking to you directly on this thing. We're on Facebook Live, Facebook Watch. That's where you can catch us. Or you can see us on our YouTube channel, Emil Guillermo YouTube channel, or emilguillermo.media, wherever you're watching. Oh, maybe Twitter. Maybe you're just like scrolling down and you're saying, oh, here's this funny Filipino guy. Maybe funny looking. And he's talking, and it must be, he must be saying something. And then, you work with your browser and your phone and try to figure out, well, what's he saying about what? Well, what that? What does an Asian American think? Emil Amok's Takeout. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live, because why 2 p.m. Pacific Live? Because, most of the day happens. Most of the big stuff that needs to happen happens. And you might say to yourself, well, Emil, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. You're slipping something extra to us now, because I noticed on my sundial says 1:54 Pacific Live. Yeah, 1:54 Pacific right now. This is your something extra. I'm going to give you something extra. The lanyap. The lanyap. The Filipinos were in New Orleans for the longest time. 16th century, they say. Spanish galleon. Around Jean Lafitte, just southeast of New Orleans. So yeah, lanyap would have been a Filipino kind of thing. Cajun Filipino. Anyway, this is the lanyap today. Just a little about sports, because last night was all about sports. I was watching the baseball, was disgusted by the Dodgers because it looked like they were going to go down. Thank goodness I was rooting for the Braves to just like put their foot on the Dodgers' neck. But the Braves, they're a weird team. They've lost a lot of their good players. Acuna is injured. I don't really like the Braves. I don't like the tomahawk chop. I don't like any of that. But I don't like the Dodgers because I'm a Giants fan. And I'd like to see the Dodgers lose. And they were losing big time. And I thought all the Braves have to do is hold, and then the Braves have a 3-0 lead in the series. And what do? They let Belly, the guy they call Bellinger, right? Cody Bellinger, and they let him hit a home run, 3-run home run. Here's a guy. This is kind of like a classic come from behind kind of baseball story. In the same way in the 80s when the A's hit those home runs against, or the Dodgers hit those home runs against the A's, and they came back to defeat the A's and go on to the World Series, the Lasorda years. And it was just an incredible 3-run blast to tie the game at 5. And then Mookie Betts, who I'm now convinced is the best player in baseball because he did the same thing to the Giants. He's your leadoff hitter, plays small ball, gets the run. The Dodgers go up, 6-5. Can the Atlanta Braves catch up? They can't. And now the series is, 2-1. Could have been 3-0. It's now 2-1. The Dodgers are still in it. And the Braves don't have any pitching. So now in the momentum switch, the Dodgers look like they might be able to come back, which it hurts my San Francisco Giants heart. But that's baseball, right? But Asian Americans who are Dodger fans love that. Now, Asian Americans who are basketball fans love the fact that the Lakers are playing the Warriors because the Warriors are beloved by Asian Americans worldwide or Asians worldwide. And the Lakers, they're a team everyone is interested in because of LeBron and Anthony Davis. But man, what a show last night. LeBron's still good, Anthony Davis is good, and the Lakers are good, but not as good as a lousy Golden State Warriors team. And I call them lousy because Curry wasn't playing well enough for 20 points and a triple-double, which is an incredible thing because he didn't look really into the game. He was shooting poorly, but he was still pretty darn good. And I was watching Poole. I want to call him Gary Poole, but he's not Gary Poole. The Warriors guard. He's gotten better. I mean, really better. And he started hitting those threes in the second half. Jordan Poole, excuse me for that. And I think the Warriors, once they get Klay Thompson, they've got a good team. The best player I thought was, and the biggest surprise was the tall Serbian guy, 6'10", Bjelica, whose name looks like you pronounce it Bjelica. But Bjelica, he looks like he's going to be the find. I'm predicting right now, Golden State Warriors are going to be the surprise of the season. If everyone is healthy, Klay Thompson comes back, they avoid injuries, they look to be a fun, good team. Moses Moody, one of the draft picks, looked good a few minutes, but the Lakers did not look beyond Anthony Davis and LeBron James. They didn't look as good. Anyway, so sports, I give you a little something extra. My feelings about, believe me, last night was all sports. I mean, I got all newsied out during the day, and then I get sportsy at night, and then I had some internet troubles in the evening, and I had to do some stuff. The PETA podcast, for example, I had to do that. You want to hear about animal rights? You want to see what's on the horizon for animal rights? Check out the PETA podcast. It's civil rights for animals, constitutional rights for animals. Check out the PETA podcast. All right, it's a little after the 2 p.m. Pacific hour. Welcome to Emil Amok's Takeout, number 162. This is our program today. I want to talk about the really big stuff today, more about firsting, this idea that I don't think I made it up, but I'm making a big deal about it because if you're a Black, Indigenous, a person of color, an Asian American, being first matters. Being in the room matters. And it mattered 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago with Colin Powell. It matters today. And I just say check out my column on the ALDEF website, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, aldef.org/blog. I write about some thoughts about Powell. The most immediate thought is, darn it, if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. Because only because you're not vaccinated, someone who is older and in a vulnerable group, like Colin Powell, who had myeloma, cancer, my goodness, he couldn't beat that. And he couldn't beat the fact that only 62% of the country is vaccinated. I believe that's the number. I mean, we need to get up to 70 to 80% to be effective. But those of you who are unvaccinated, this is on you. This is what happens. This is why we have more than 720,000 deaths in America. And it's not about freedom. This is about pulling together as a team. This is about pulling together in the name of public health. You know, a lot of people come on Facebook and put out misinformation. This information is real. Vaccines help stop the spread, help keep people from dying. You got to do your part. Otherwise, we'll see more of this kind of thing where people in their 80s, people who have compromised immune systems, end up dying because Americans are too selfish to believe in public health. That's what it boils down to. So I talk about that as the big thing for Powell. And wouldn't you know, yesterday was a day that a lot of people who are conservative, a lot of people who are on that, you know, the anti-vax side, they just went full throttle, saying, well, you know, Powell's death shows that vaccines don't work. Powell was vaccinated. Clearly, vaccines don't work. No, that's not what it shows. I mean, you take a bigger sample, take the sample that exists, and you see that vaccines do work. There will be breakthrough cases where people who are vaccinated can come down with the disease. But sometimes it's not an absolute thing. But if it weren't for the fact that Powell had a compromised immune system because of cancer, he may not have had the breakthrough. But it's just kind of despicable to see people use Powell's death to back that anti-vax side. Because Powell was a soldier for America, protecting everyone. He'd want you to get vaxxed. So my Powell piece is really about how being a first really matters. And, you know, it's ironic that he died on the day of the Philippines, or Filipinos were first to America. I explained that in a previous column. But this idea of being a kid born to Jamaican immigrants in New York, growing up, he didn't go to West Point. He didn't go to an elite school. He went to City College of New York and just found something he loved, something he was interested in. He graduated in geology, but the guy was passionate about ROTC, about the military. And boy, did he go far. And all the firsts that he did, my goodness. So I just think we cannot talk about Colin Powell enough. And I call this the show for the AAPI and the AAXs, my naming convention for Asian American, Filipinos, Chinese, AAX, right? Because I don't know if you noticed, but democracy's in a kind of a crisis here. And we needed someone like Colin Powell to stand up, set an example. I mean, you see how diverse the Asian American community is. And the Asian American community is largely, I would say maybe 60% Democrat, but that's a large 30 to 40% either independent or Republican. And of all the national politicians who could bring us all together in one lump together, over 90%, I would imagine, it would be someone like a Colin Powell. You know, because Asian Americans are, we could be traditional, we can be militaristic, we could be conservative, as well as liberal. We're all those things. But name one political leader who could bring us all together in the last, say, 20, 25 years. I know Colin Powell strikes me as one of the few on the Republican side who can bring us together and not polarize anyone. I mean, even the dovish peaceniks would say, they'd look at Colin Powell and say, okay, I don't believe in war. He didn't believe in war. But, you know, he did believe in a doctrine that says if you go to war, you have the support of the people and you go in there with overwhelming power and you win. I just think Powell was the kind of guy who could bring people together. We need people like that. The problem is politicians have discovered that you win by polarizing people. You win by polarizing the country. You win by scattering the electorate and letting them find their way, maybe back to you. And that's been the political strategy for a long time when it comes to dividing up an electorate and then polarizing it so that your votes are clearly delineated versus your opponents. And that will work in the short term, but it's going to destroy America in the long term. The big picture, the long game. And I bring up what happened just within an hour of me coming on here, 2 p.m. Pacific, the voting rights fiasco in Congress. The Republicans blocked the latest. They didn't need that many votes. Now, what happened? Just as I was speaking, they cut the Washington Post changed their page, and they made it impossible for me to find the thing that I wanted to share with you. Now here's what happened. I'll take it from the Brennan Center. We have a situation where the Republicans blocked the debate. A minority of the Republicans. Here's the odd thing about this. The Republicans, I mean, there's enough votes to pass this and to get this back. I'm talking about the Freedom to Vote Act. There's enough to get Biden to sign it, but this obstructionist act by Republicans has stopped debate on the Senate floor. And now who knows what's going to happen. They got to get back on track. We need voting rights reestablished by the Freedom to Vote Act, by the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We need all those acts passed because we need to make it easier, not harder for people to vote. I mean, does it make sense? I mean, there's like 19 states that have passed 33 laws that are making it hard. You need to take this personally. There are people out there who would rather not see you vote. They're afraid of your vote. They're afraid of our numbers. They're afraid of our power. If we ever got it together and cast the votes for the same issues, the same candidates, they're afraid. And I'm just saying, if you're not following this latest thing, you got to follow what's happening with the Freedom to Vote Act. Call your congressman. Let him know how you feel. It's significant. I mean, the Republicans blocked this even after they kind of watered it down. The Senate watered it down, and it still wasn't good enough to pass out of, to pass the debate on the floor. So the vote was 49 to 51. They needed 60 votes to advance the legislation. And so the Freedom to Vote Act states the new bill keeps some provisions from the earlier bill, including national standards for early voting and vote by mail, new disclosure requirements for dark money groups, and establishment of Election Day as a federal holiday. That would be good, right? You take time off to vote, to be an American, to be a lover of democracy. But it also discards or scales back controversial provisions such as reworking of the Federal Election Commission, a major new public financing system, a mandate for nonpartisan redistricting commissions, and it omits major revisions to the ethics regime for federal office holders. Insignificant? No, it's significant. But you need to pass these laws to offset what they're doing at the state level that are passing some real restrictions. Anyway, that's what happened within the last hour. The voting rights. So we talked about Powell. We talked about the ALDEF column I write about being a firster. That's what I see about Powell mostly. And what I revere about Powell, that he was not a rich kid, not an elitist. I mean, he was a tall guy from the Bronx, went to City College, bragged about getting C's and D's. I like that fact. But he excelled in something. He excelled in, all things military. And look at his climb up and how he was a first at all these levels. And yet, he never stopped. He kept going. Anyway, I just think it's incredible that we were around when he was around. I wish he were around longer because we need more people who transcend race and transcend politics and can bring us together. Colin Powell was that guy. All right, I want to talk about some other things in the news, like right now, what's happening. Have you seen The Closer with Dave Chappelle? We touched upon it briefly. No, I haven't. I've seen Squid Game. I've seen the first episode, and I get the green jumpsuit with the numbers, yeah. But I am not taken by Squid Game. Well, I'm a vegan. I'll wait for the vegan version. There's got to be a vegan version of Squid Game. Maybe carrot on a stick game or something. There's got to be a game they play with vegetables. Beanbag. There are beans in the beanbag. Maybe a beanbag game where you take your beanbag and someone puts his head through a hole and you just like smack the hell out of him with the beanbag. That would be violent enough for Squid Game action, wouldn't it? I didn't get it. I didn't get Squid Game. I like the fact that the Asians look kind of interesting. Like, okay, this is a kind of surreal Asian thing. It is, but I mean, this is well loved by everybody. And mind you, I love Parasite. I thought Parasite was engaging and funny, not nearly as surreal as Squid Game, though. Squid Game is on a surreal and violent level. And I think that is why I'm not a big Squid Game fan. I mean, I got maybe 3/4 in, when they were running and playing red light, green light, and people were dying. I don't know. I just didn't. I grew up in a rough neighborhood, but we didn't play Squid Games when I was growing up. Anyway, number one show, right, for Netflix. But I did see Closer with Dave Chappelle. I love Dave Chappelle. I'll mention Dave Chappelle now during Filipino American Heritage Month because his wife is he's got Filipino American kids. I've seen him live. I've never really met him or talked to him, but I admire Dave Chappelle. I followed him ever since he was just a kid from Silver Spring, Maryland, playing in the DC comedy clubs. So followed him a long time. Admire his principled stands in his career. But now we have Netflix employees today staging a virtual walkout. Don't know what's happening, but they're protesting the closer. They're doing an in-person rally at the headquarters in LA as well. They're going to have activists, public figures, and they're going to make demands of co-CEO Ted Sarandos. I mean, here's some things I know. Employees have said they will not ask Sarandos to remove the closer, but they hope for other concrete actions that demonstrate that the company will, quote, stop pretending that transphobia in media has no effect in society. I think that's a winner. Look, you do not shut down Dave Chappelle or the closer because this is a matter of free speech. And while free speech is really a matter of the government and Congress passing laws to limit speech, that's what the First Amendment is about. Private company could do anything they want. So that means Netflix. But what kind of message would it be if Netflix came out and said, we're gonna put the kibosh on Dave Chappelle? No, that would be bad. That would be censorship, and that would be bad. My point throughout all this has been free speech is free, which means when you have a disagreement, don't limit speech, add more speech. We need more speech, not less. That's democracy. And that could happen. I haven't seen the demands, but if they have something, if the protesters have something that say, hey, look, Netflix, stop pretending that transphobia in media has no effect in society. Because here's the thing. We know it does. And we also know that's why some people kind of get turned off by Squid Games. I mean, some people like it. Clearly, people like it. Because maybe they see it as an ultimate fantasy in the same way that all the video games, all the killing games on video, oh, those are just fantasies. Okay, I get that. But the feelings are real. And when the feelings are real, is that art to feel how bad it is to be shot and killed, or to kill someone, or to be engaged in. Is that a feeling that we really want? I don't know. What about joy? What about happiness? What about what? Look, I'm all for tragedy. I'm all for tragedy, but I'm also for hugging and kissing and love, not pornography. I'm for joy. I'm for that positive experience. Mike Hale is a New York Times critic. I'm not really a friend. We're more acquaintances. We now, in a city of 10 million people, it is kind of odd when you keep bumping into each other in a subway. Okay, it only happened once. But, at a weird time, oh, it's Mike Hale. Mike is Asian American. He's one of the top TV critics at the Times. And he was right on a couple days ago, I think last Friday. He did a review saying, look, if maybe you have been spared being sucked in by the Squid Game, or by Squid Games, or whatever the proper name is. But he just said, look, it's just a lot of empty calories. For those of you with a blood fetish or a blood hunger, that was enough for me. I see. So look, there's no censoring it. It's just we have an opinion, right? Same thing with Chappelle. If there is differing opinions, then darn it, power to them at the protest today. That's the right thing. Let their opinions be known. And for Chappelle should know that his right to say what he wants is protected because people get a chance to speak back. Not necessarily in a concert venue to shout him down, because look, I'm a performer. If I'm performing, I don't want someone shouting me down as I'm delivering my soliloquy. They can wait, and in the right forum, they can debate with other people. Not necessarily the artist, but people who might have the artist's view of the closer. Unlike a lot of people, I have seen the closer. And there's a touching story about a trans woman who's a fan of Dave Chappelle. And he even gives her an opportunity to perform, to open for him. Apparently she wasn't that good. But that's not the point. The point is that she was genuine. She hung out backstage and had fun at the party. And she really enjoyed the idea that she could be herself. So Chappelle's not necessarily anti-trans, unless I'm missing something. But he did mention this idea of TERF, TERF, trans exclusive radical feminism, which I don't know anything about. I don't know what TERF is. Trans exclusive radical feminism. So I'm in the dark there. But once again, it's another point for debate. All for the employees who are demonstrating at Netflix today. And look, Sarandos, the co-CEO, has said he screwed up in this internal communication about the closer, but he's also weighed in and said he does not think that what Chappelle says in his special is hate speech. And I think that's true. I did not see it as hate speech. But here's the opportunity for Netflix to say, okay, we don't limit speech, we give you more speech. So here's more stories of trans. Here's more instances, real life situations that show what happens in communities that are unfriendly toward trans people. And that is what you need to balance out a comedian's opinion, which, as I said, I saw the closer. I was not offended by it. I didn't think it was advocating violence toward trans people. In fact, the story is, the story he tells is about a woman who felt, I don't know what the circumstances were, but it was a tragic end for this person. But I think in the end, there's a feeling that that person had every right to be herself, to do what she wanted to do, and to express herself. So I just hope that today's demonstration will help people understand what's going on. Whatever happens, we shouldn't be for censorship. We shouldn't be for shutting down anyone. And it shouldn't be about cancel culture. This isn't about canceling anyone. This is about making sure people understand the multitude of angles on transness and on the reality of a trans life. It's not just Chappelle's view. It's not just the turf view. It's not just the activist view. It's complex. It's real. And we need to hear more of those stories. So, power to the activists, though. They got CEO Ted Sarandis' attention. Here was one reader. I read something in the Wall Street Journal, and a reader said, it would have been more powerful, let's see, and certainly less crass if Mr. Sarandis had hit harder, had hit solely on the issue of artistic freedom and not, oh, no, that's the wrong one. Here it is. Dave Chappelle's Netflix special, let's see. In it, he was, as is his way, avowedly anti-woke, especially on gender issues, including the LGBTQ movement, which he has called the alphabet people. He knew he'd get in trouble. He has in the past. They dragged me on Twitter. I don't give a blank because Twitter's not a real place. The special is a hit, and he seemed comfortable because he knows he is talking to regular people, not ideologues. The show was taped in Detroit. The past week, he has been castigated by LGBTQ. Where is my? Oh, I'm missing my. Well, I already lost my space here. Oh, here. A reader says, where is it? Okay. All right. I missed it. The point of the reader was that the companies are coddling the woke because by coddling the woke, they encourage and enable the woke activists. That was one idea. I don't believe that. I really think, look, when you're a writer, journalist, when you believe in freedom of expression, there's only one way to view this, honestly. And it's a First Amendment, a freedom of speech issue. And it's a matter of let's hear all sides of the debate. That's it. So let's see more trans programs on Netflix that are real, that will not necessarily rebut whatever Dave Chappelle says, but certainly balance the view that Chappelle is presenting in his special at the closer. I watched that and I thought this is not something worth getting angry about, but this is something that you can go to Ted Sarandos at Netflix and say, okay, let's put something real about trans people on. That would be a decent rebuttal to anything that Dave Chappelle might want to say. They can all coexist. And who's better for it? The viewer, the American public, because no one gets shut out. We all get a chance to hear a point of view. All right, just a couple things I want to touch on. Man, I was just scanning the news, and there's did you see that thing about the pig kidney? See, now I think I've lost my. See, I have this computer that it will take away my my note. Well, anyway, there was a pig kidney that was hooked up to a brain dead patient. This was a breaking news story somewhere, and the idea is they kept a person alive for something like 54 minutes, and they called it a success for now. But I hope it doesn't mean more experiments on genetically modified pigs so they can somehow get the kidney of this animal and connect it to, maybe after they do a brain dead human, they'll do one who's actually a live human being. One of the things I questioned about that story, about the pig kidney story, they don't put the kidney inside the body, because that would, I don't believe, so because that would reject, right? The body would reject the kidney. The other thing is, boy, if you are looking for a pig kidney, I think you're probably at the low point, because if we all have two kidneys, you can live on one kidney. You don't need a second kidney. If something happens and you don't have it, then you can survive on one kidney. To try to see if you can go to a pig kidney, I don't know. I just wondered, don't these scientists have something better to do? Really? All right. Couple more things. No, I think that's it for now. We talked about the Lakers. I think the Lakers are an overrated team. And I think the Warriors, if you are a Warrior fan, I think they're back. I think they are going to show signs of life. I get a good feeling about this Warrior team. A good feel, not a, a better feeling than I've had about the Warriors in a long, long time. They just seem young, better than last year's team when Wiseman started and then got hurt. They've got some real, because they had like a couple of good players, a lot of lousy ones, and a star rookie. This time they've got star rookies, veterans. That's the key, veterans, and they're all basically good. They're not these kind of lousy veterans. They're like Bielitsa is a good player. I think he's going to be the surprise. Anyway, for you basketball fans out there, just more Warriors. I just think they're going to be good. And the Dodgers play the Braves again. They got back in the series. I hope the Braves can do it. Something tells me that it's going to be tied 2-2 after tonight. And the Dodgers are going to be back, and they got their second win. They almost were down 3-0 yesterday, 3-0. But I think they're going to come back. And as far as the Boston Astros series, I like Boston a little bit. And the Astros were cheaters, and they still haven't lived down that crisis. But I honestly, I don't want to see the Red Sox in there. I don't think they're that good. Their pitching isn't that good. And I think the best man, well, I'm biased now because I'm a Giants fan. I wanted to see that this could have been the Giants' year. Okay. Tomorrow's Thursday. Of course, we'll cover the news. We'll scan the news and talk about other things in life. It's not really my birthday week. It's sort of the birthday month. And it's funny. I just find myself feeling a little different or reacting a little different. I think it shows that there can be growth, even at this, late stage in life. There can be some kind of change. I know that, well, my wife would say, well, you were sure yelling at that television set when the Warriors are missing those 2-point shots. Yes, I was yelling, but I'm a lot more mindful than I was. A lot more mindful. That's the thing about meditation, I think, has helped. And I go back to that definition that Sharon Salzberg likes to tell. 9-year-old kid is asked, what is mindfulness? And he says, well, that's where I don't punch that guy in the face. Yeah, I get it. I am not punching anyone in the face. I'm mindful. I'm taking my time. But you know what it says? It says that at some point you thought, or I thought, that there was virtue in fighting back, in being disagreeable, because being disagreeable got you somewhere. And I think it was just my emotional immaturity about how things work. Because, yeah, you can be immobile, be intransigent, say, I'm not agreeing to anything. I'm going to fight you tooth and nail. But does it really get you anywhere? And I think I may have seen that at some point in my life as the way to be. And now I see that there clearly is a better way. Anyway, just some life things that I notice about myself right now, currently, as I deal with things happening. And I think we'll be back again tomorrow. Yeah. Hey, thanks for listening to Emil Amok's Takeout Live, number 162. You catch a replay on amok.com. I will put it up there. Also, read my columns at aldef.org/blog. Also on Inquirer.net. Inquirer.net, Philippine Inquirer's website. for the Filipino diaspora members. Would you call them diasporants? I like to say, be here, bang the gong now. EmilGuillermo.media, also on amok.com. That's where you catch us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. So thank you. Oh, also catch the PETA podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, or the podcast version of Emil Amok's Takeout. There is a not of this show, but of different shows that I've done, different interviews. Wherever you podcast, Emil Amok's Takeout. So that's it. I'm Emil Guillermo. Email me, emil@amok.com. This is the Micro Talk Show of the AAPI and the AAXs and the ALLs. Thank you for being here with me. If you've made it this far into the show, thank you. Thank you for hanging in there. And, just for hanging in there, you get a hug from me. You get that feel, where I tell you, not just thank you, but I say, thank you for being here. Thank you for staying to the end. And I want you to know that you're all right. You're good. You're deserving. No shame. No shame. You belong. Remember that. Just remember this. As I wish for me, I wish for you. That we be safe. That we be happy. That we be healthy. And that we live with ease. Emil Guillermo. Till next time. Mahal Kita.